Good morning, lovelies. Can you hear me okay today? That is the question. I cannot find my microphone for the laptop. I don't know where I put it. I don't know what I did with it. I'm just having that kind of a morning. Thank you, Cat Paws. Watching all the tropical weather this morning, hoping that Imelda doesn't do anything more than just like a little bit of rain. Anyway, hi. Hello, lovelies. My name is Mama Maggie Ward, independent author, stroke survivor, migraine overcomer, and I am your host for Breaking the Block today. Sam is taking the weekend off. Rachel is on a road trip. Yay for her. And so today I have a few interesting questions. And this came up as a note that I got from a beta reader about how many characters I have in a novel. How many is too many? How many is not enough? And first, we're going to talk about like popular books, things like that, that have and how many characters they have, and stuff like that. Like Fourth Wing and that whole series is extremely popular right now. But besides the two main characters, there's also 3 dragons who all have their own personalities. More than pets, but not enough to be side characters. So that's 5 plus all of the other people, Violet's mother, Zayden's best friend, things like that. So this is a huge cast, like 20 different like characters that, and some of them get almost as much page time as the main 2 characters. So it's a definitely a collage cast. It is a whole bunch. Whereas you contrast that to like Castaway, I apologize for the dogs that will be like yipping throughout this entire thing. It is antelope season and we have hunters. And while there is no hunting on my land, there is hunting on land around me. So yeah, periodically there are sounds that are triggering to them. My apologies. Anyway, back to where I was. There's a book called Castaway, which starts off with a few characters, and then it is just one character and his imagination, his imaginary friend, who is a volleyball, Wilson. And it's very Robinson Crusoe. It carries the whole thing. And you get flashbacks of other characters in there, but they're not active characters in the books. And then you have like a book like The Joy Luck Club, which is five main characters, their mothers, and their parents, and there's like 30 different individual characters in that book. Or Under the Tuscan Sky. Yeah, I'm quoting all books from my generation because yeah, I'm that old. Under the Tuscan Sky, where there is one major character, the house becomes a character, and then there's different side characters sprinkled into it here and there, but they do not have as much page time. Eat, Pray, Love is another book like that. The Shining is a good example of a small cast. Father, mother, child, all the ghosts kind of become their own thing, but the house becomes its own character. The manor becomes its own character in The Shining. So it's very interesting what can be a character. When I wrote the Pagosa Stars series and I wrote Tank Tanner, there's Tank, you have his wife and son, and then you have several people around Pagosa Cliffs that are side characters in there, but the main character is Tank. And actually, Tank's alcoholism becomes its own character. It literally, he talks about the whiskey singing to him like a siren. It whispers to him. And so there are options, not just for people as characters or aliens or animals, but for inanimate objects to become characters. So the question is, and let me pull up my banners. The question number 1 is, no, that's not the right banner. Sorry. How is the weather where you are, by the way? It is 58 degrees Fahrenheit here in Colorado today. That's about 18 Celsius. I would have to do the conversion. My brain is not mathing today. I woke up with a terrible headache, so I dosed myself with medication. And now I am not mathing. 15 degrees Celsius. Wow, my math was really off on that one. My guesstimate was off. Okay, yeah. 15 degrees Celsius here. Sunny, beautiful day. Let's see. Say hello to everybody. Rachel came in. She is on the road today. I was saying good morning to everyone. Cat Paw came in. Just haven't checked that yet. Had breakfast, washing up. Nice. Yeah. Keiko came in. Hi, sweetie. Yeah, that is Shiley. That is my new buddy, my new baby. And of course, you all know, or that was Sky that I was holding earlier. This is Shiley. You all know Shiley, my very common co-host. She is just clingy since I came back from visiting the middle. Yeah, we are having a busy time. All right. So the question is, how many side characters are too many characters? How developed do you make your side characters? I am a person who I tend to write huge cast. I write a lot of characters when I'm doing creative developing for my book. Before I write my book, when I'm using my build the tree method, one of the things I do is I actually do character profiles and death scenes for all of my side origin scenes and death scenes for all of my the side characters that I plan. Now, if I end up having to add a side character during the writing, I will go back in and backfill that character. When I'm doing the editing process, I might combine characters together. And I had to do that a lot with Relic of Time Wars, because originally I had like 50 main characters. There's 8 main characters. And then there is almost 50 side characters. And I had side characters that became main characters in other books and then went back to being side characters. And it kind of weaves in and out, because that's life. People come and go in your life. They weave in and out. But yeah, so I think the biggest example of that. Good morning, Esther. Another person writes a lot of people. I wrote when I was first starting writing, about the 3rd or 4th year that I was writing after my stroke. I wrote a book called Revelation of Ash. And I wrote it all first person POV, all 11 characters, the 2 main characters and the 9 side character, the 2 main characters, the antagonist, and 8 side characters. So it was 9 side characters total, all had their own POV. They all had their own personality types. They all had their own music playlist. They all had their own. I did character interviews on every single one of them. I thought I was going to be schizophrenic by the time I finished writing it, because they all had such different voices. And it was really, really a struggle to keep all of those voices from overlapping. So when I did the edits, when I went back and did the rewrites, I ended up cutting down to 2 first-person POVs, and everybody else went third-person limited. If you don't know what third-person limited is, third-person limited, there's several types of third-person POVs. Third-person omniscient is where the third-person POV knows everything that's going on everywhere all the time. The third-person limited is where the people in the scene only know what's going on in their scene. They don't know what's going on in the rest of the world. So that's what I ended up doing. And it was crazy. It was when I was writing it, having to, sorry, it's a hunting season again. I'm so sorry. This is going to be a thing. Hello, sweetheart. How are you? How are things across the pond popping up before the horror book club? To boot the light. Yeah. You're a horror and gothic reader. How many characters are usually in the cast of those books? I am not a horror or gothic reader. I have read many Stephen King books. Not a fan. Not a fan of horror. I think there's enough horror in the real world that we don't need to create more, but I understand the entertainment value of it. Hey, you and I are the same that way, girlfriend. You and I are the same. I'm watching the storms down around you, and I'm like, please don't get bad. Please don't get bad. Please don't. Imelda does not need to be a storm. She just needs to be some little rain and stay number 9. So yeah. So it's the complaint I got about the Revelation Night series, about the 3 books, was that it was too hard to follow so many different POVs in the first person. And even after I went third person on most of the POVs, there were still complaints that it was still very skewed toward the different personality types. And that took it took like, I think I rewrote the entire thing like 8 times. And it was a lot. It was a lot of rewriting to get things that way. So, the question you have to ask is, how many are too many? Now, in a lot of like cozies, it's like the main character, the love interest, the secondary love interest, the antagonist, and the best friend. So, with a 5-character cast. And then you have little people that come and go. So, yeah. But it's very interesting how many books that you read today that either have little tiny cast, or they have these immense cast. Which, so it's going to be dealer's choice on that, on how many. But like I said, the problem comes is when you get too many, that your readers, first of all, they start losing interest in the side characters, and because they're distracted by the side characters, they then start losing interest in the main characters. So then you have this thing where, or if you unfortunately have a side character like I do sometimes, where the side character turns out to be more interesting than the main characters. And you end up like Daisy. When I was writing Relic of Time Wars, Daisy was supposed to be this side character. And she ended up taking over as a main character, actually taking over for Prince Karstein as a main character, because she was just more interesting than him. And I hate to say this, that the magical semi-immortal prince was not as interesting as the savant oracle, the math savant oracle, but with my personality type, I should have known. I should have known when I created her as a character, she was going to be the more interesting one. Because as a writer, she appealed to me more than the others. So that brings us to, how do you choose which characters to combine or to delete? So you finished your rough draft, you finished your 0 draft, and now you're going through your edits. And one of the things that I always recommend after you finish the first is go back and verify your character personalities. You go back, you read through, you look for, you do your own evaluation, you do your first grammar pass, you check for word consistencies, like you want your place names to all be the same. You want your character names to all be the same. You have to check that. And if there have been times when I've ended up with 2 different side characters with almost identical names. And then I was like, oh, are these different characters? Are they the same characters? What? So then you have to go through and you have to look at a thing of how many characters do I have? How many characters do I need? And which characters can I smush together to make just to trim down my cast? So that I've done that multiple times, especially with the Relic of Time Wars, because it was so big. I mean, it's 1.4 million words. I have all these places, all these times. And yeah, I have some side characters that only appear in one book. And then they're only ever mentioned again. And writing The Shadow Hunt, which is the cap of the series, some of these side characters that I haven't visited for 10 books, I'm having to go back and relook at their personalities so I can write them with the characters that I'm writing with. And it's sometimes it's really obvious which characters you can work together to do the same thing with. If the side characters, if these minor characters have the same arc, sometimes you can combine them, but you have to be careful because then you run into a problem like I ran into when I was doing, was it the Dauntless Deception? No, it was Light of Jura, where I had one character, side character, that was actually in 2 different places, like across the galaxy from each other. One was at one battle and one was at the monitoring station on a different planet in another star system. So I had to actually go back in and put in one of the very, very tertiary characters to fill his place. And then there were other characters like Fleet Commander Lance of Rundus that he basically cameos. You see his brother Lars all the time. And I ended up cutting like 15 different scenes with Lance in it just because there were too many characters. And I needed to, this space fleet stuff was interesting, but it wasn't directly plot pathing with what was going on with the war. So Commander the space fleet, the Etherian space fleet, the Terran space fleet, almost all of those scenes, except for the ones that were absolutely necessary to the plot, I ended up just cutting them out and cutting all those characters. Lance and Lilith becomes tertiary characters. All the stuff with the tech core in Etheria, I ended up cutting out because while those characters were interesting and they were supporting cast for Daisy and Davin, they were not necessary for you to know everything, for the readers to know everything about this. And am I going to go back someday and maybe write a book about the fleets and the tech core of Etheria and Jura? Yeah, maybe. I've got enough scenes for like a novella. Just scenes from the entire series. So, but the thing with is you have to figure out is where is the point where you're going to overwhelm the readers? Where is the point where a side character is more interesting than the main characters? Who do you cut back? Who do you emphasize? Especially when you're writing a series. I know Rachel with the Dragon Tasker series, she has a very large cast. And some of the characters are very, very interesting. She does what I do. She plays up some characters in some books and then downplays them in other books. Her and Dawn. And, there's characters that I would like to see more of, but their existence does not necessarily contribute to the arc of the story of the series. Like I would love everything about counselors in Leal. All of it about the Fae counselor who took her sister's place after her sister was disappeared. And then things. And but she is a supporting character, and you have to be very careful when you have a lot of side characters that they don't become a main theme. In Relic of Time Wars, there was Vol of Valent. And Navigator Vol of Valent, who he started as a guardsman. He is the sealed one of the human Maisoni, Moira Garrett. He starts experimenting with this substance in my world called the Dark Water, which is basically the liquid essence of evil. And through this, he actually ends up in book 12 in the Darkness of the Devourer, the last book of the series. He actually becomes indwelled and takes over the war effort, while Prince Damien is recovering from a self-induced magic wound because he detonated a Mage's Bane, or tried to detonate a Mage's Bane around on Karstein and the swordsman Shads of Odini, and they like knocked it through a portal and then slammed the portal shut, and Damien was caught in the blast, and so he was pretty critically injured. So, but these shadow indwelled character of Vol of Valent, I ended up having to combine like 3 different characters into this one character, and like change his arc changed completely, because in the original story, he was shadowed and working, and his shadow was working as a double. It had indwelled him, was working as a double agent. He had no idea, and then he ended up like betraying the Alliance, and then watching his sealed one get murdered, because but he couldn't do anything because he was indwelled. And then I ended up like combining him with 2 other shadowed ones to actually make him be the one that became the Shadow General. And so, and that was how I cut 3 characters down to 1. And another thing, when you have large cast of characters, when you have a fantastic world, or any world for that matter, I mean, this can happen in a cozy, this can happen in romance, fantasy, sci-fi, is you need exposition, you need world building. And when you have these complicated worlds, when you have these immense, when you build out these things, how do you work around having expositional NPCs? That is a character that appears one time, talks about this or that thing of the world, this or that thing in your town, this or that thing about a character, about a location. How do you avoid the one-shot NPC expositional character? So this becomes a very difficult thing for a lot of writers, because we spend a lot of effort building our world, building our characters, making things so interesting for not just for ourselves as the writers, but for our readers. We want you to be as invested in our books as possible. So when we are working in this world, we want to tell you all about it. I know when I wrote the Revelation of Ash series, I have a chapter after the prologue, and you meet one of the antagonists and the husband of the main character, who dies in like the second chapter. He dies in the second chapter. I have this little thing that I put in there and I literally called it the annoying sciencey world building part, is at the top of this chapter heading. And I break the 4th wall, which is a complete violation of writer etiquette. And I talk to the audience about, this is why wars happen. This is why everything leading up to the Revelation 9 happened. And I talk about genetic drift, the science of genetic drift. I talk about the science of engineering food, engineering the environment, making things toxic. I talk about how governments and cultural representatives have manipulated this the scientific community and the media to create these bipolar ideas about non-humans are evil, ooh, bad, we must destroy them all, and oh, non-humans, I could be friends with non-humans, vampires, werewolves, fae, oh my. And how these two bipolar ideas about about different species living among the human species decide to go to war. And it's like 3 pages, and it's the sciences. I did the sciencey work there, and I discovered that not having that part in, my early readers were like, why is there so much hatred in this group? Why is there so much animosity? And I thought there was being acceptance in society because of, of movies and romance novels and all of this stuff to make non-humans seem less threatening. And then the people who hated the non-humans went for basically this terrorist biochemical attack to make them look like the monsters they believe they were. And I decided to go ahead and leave it in the books. I know it's something that like they absolutely preach against not doing this, but I did that because I didn't want to have someone literally sitting there explaining all of these complicated anthropological, sociological, and scientific principles. And it comes up again and again as Quinn is doing her research, but it's not in depth enough that the readers were picking up on it. So that's why I did that. But we've all seen that the expositional thing where it's just someone going on and on and on and on about the world history or about this location, or like, goodness, like some of the older writers spending like paragraphs talking about a room or a setting and the details of this setting. So one of the workarounds for having expositional NPCs is having a main character or a side character doing research, which I use in Relic of Time Wars, because Daisy's all about the research, and everyone around, and her tech core, they're all about the research. Another thing is having it told as mythology, having it a story time with characters or child characters, a news report on the television about this, not too long, you got to not have it too long, but there are things that you can do to work around having those one-shot expositional NPCs, and that is by rolling them in to a side character, into a tertiary character, where they're explaining something. Like in Pagosa Cliffs, I have Aunt Elizabeth. She's 104 years old, feisty to the day she dies, and she talks about the history of Pagosa Cliffs. I have a thing where the stuff comes up about how the McConnell Ranch was, the Rocking M Ranch was established. I have a story about, where some of the side characters are sitting around, and it's not the main characters aren't there. One of the main characters, it's his sister, talking, sitting in church and thinking about her grandparents. And that tells the whole story of how the McConnell Ranch, the Rocking M, came to be, and why Doc McConnell did. And there's another thing about why Doc McConnell decided that he didn't want to be a doctor anymore after World War II. He just became a veterinarian. And there's all kinds of things like this that you can add in that will add depth, that will add an expanse to your world, without just having like the game non-player character say, and this is this, and this is this, and this is this. And if you go down this path, you will find this house. And here is the history of this house. And if you go down this path, you will go to the bay. And here is the history of the bay. Yeah, that's not as interesting as somebody standing at the Tourist Bureau Museum and staring at a map and having somebody come up going, "What are you looking at?" And they're like, what does this say here? Just there's all kinds of ways to find ways around how to have those. And by having a side character that appears, and another thing is you can take these NPCs and make them one continuous character. You can have the wise elder character, the quirky neighbor character. You can thread all of these different little NPCs, all of these little scenes where you have to have them. You can thread them together like beads on a string and have one character or two characters. Braid them together, 3 characters maybe. But there are ways to get around having these one-shot NPCs and reduce the number of total characters in your world into a more manageable thing. And that way you don't end up like I ended up, where you have 2, 3 side characters that are just that are just in for a few scenes or a few chapters, and they have similar names but completely opposite personalities. The difference between Amelia and Emily. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. So, does anyone have any questions, anything they want to talk about? Shiley, you may not have my coffee. No, you're a bad kitty. All right. All right. Okay, well, it looks like that is it for today. Again, sorry we don't have a lot of discussion today. Everybody is really busy this weekend. A lot of us are getting ready for All the Words October, which we decided back in when we were doing All the Words August, we thought, well, let's do this challenge again. And so we talked about All the Words October because the Rough Draft Writing Challenge is going on. There's a 90-day writing challenge. Preptober is going on with the Hardys, which is a 30-day challenge. Novel building, it's getting ready to write your novel that is going on with Heart Breathing's community. They're going to be working on that because they're going to do their own form of NaNoWriMo. The NaNoWriMo organization is gone. It is no more. However, the NaNoWriMo, or National Novel Writing Month challenge that was started in 1999 still exists. So if you are going to be doing the 50,000 words in November, Preptober is a thing that is going to be going on. We are going to be doing, there's several of us that are going to be doing All the Words October streams. Again, this is a routine building challenge. It is not a word count challenge. It is or day count challenge. It is a routine building challenge. It is so you can get that done. Yes, thank you, Cat Paw. September through December is September 22nd through December 21st is the Finish Your Book Challenge. It is to finish writing, editing your novel so that you can get it ready to publish in 2026. A lot of us, the early 2025s, 2020s were it just became a rolling ball of chaos, and everybody struggled. And by 2025, it's like everyone was just like pulling their hair out, trying to get their books done, trying to get their books written. Just it's chaos ensue. And so there's a lot of things going around in the third and fourth quarter of this year that are encouraging writers to get back to the writing you love. Get to the editing that you need to do so you can publish your book. There was a survey that came out this week where they were talking about trad publishing is struggling because they're tired of recycled content. And I don't know if any of you are Demon Slayer fans or Solo Leveling fans, the anime fans in here. Netflix has announced that because the animes are so popular and the movies are so popular and the mangas are so popular, they've decided to do live action. I'm sorry, but there is not enough CGI in the world to make the Demon Slayer or the Solo Leveling battles look good. I'm sorry. Yeah, no. What looks good in anime, I don't know if they can AI CGI it enough to make it look good as IRL. And so, yeah, all these indie authors, all these amazing ideas. So we are presenting, again, All the Words October. And of course, I did the math for you because yay, math. The word counts, I adjusted them just 1 or 2 extra words a day because on most of the 31-day challenges, you were going to need like an extra 20 words per the month. So I just rolled them up a few counts. Here's the deal. If you are doing the Monday through Friday right, because of where the month starts and where the month stops, there's actually 23 weekdays. So the word counts have slightly changed for the 18K, for the 48K, for the 88K. I did the math for you. If you are doing the weekender plan, which is the 2 days, you write 2 days a week because of where the month starts, where the month stops. The weekender numbers have slightly adjusted because there's only 8 weekend days in October. So yeah, I've got the math for you. The links to the Google Docs are below in the video description. And I hope that all of you can join us. Again, like I said, this is about returning to your routine of writing. It is about you rebuilding your opportunities to be able to enjoy your creative side and put them out there because someone in the world is waiting for their story that you have in your little squirrely brain that you can put out into things and print into a little book and send out to the world. All right. Hello, Rita. Welcome. Yes, thank you so much. I am all the words. It's looking like in discussions that we may go for April next year. Depending on how October goes, we may go again for April next year. We have not decided if we're going to do this 1 time a year, 2 times. We're doing it 2 times a year this year because 2025 sucks. And we're going on. Hello, Sam. Welcome. I will send those out to you. I have it in my Google Docs. I'll go ahead and I'll just share the link. Where is that thing? Let's share the link here. Share. Come on, load. Copy link. Where did I put the tiny URL? Rachel made me a tiny URL. Okay, I'm just going to show the log link. I don't know where I have a tiny URL. I will have to find it. But this is the All the Words August link. So if you want to look at that, please feel free. I have if you need the little icons that say all the words October, 23 days, 31 days, 23 days, 8 days, I can send those to you. Cat Leo has them on her channel. Originally, we were going to go ahead and do it the way we did the August with the 21 days and 10 days, but the way the calendar appeared, it was confusing. That was the complaint I got. So I went ahead and did the adjustment and did the math. So yes, please feel free to join us. And I just want to tell everybody, go back to your writing, enjoy it. Happy writing. We want everybody. Thanks, Emma. Oh, I hope. Autumn allergies are the worst. Personally, I dislike them very, very much. I myself am struggling with it. We tend to get a lot of allergens in Colorado, and it's the autumn allergies are almost worse than the spring allergies here. So there's that. Anyway, that is all we have for today. I hope this discussion helped you. I felt like I was rambling because, like I said, I woke up with a headache this morning and I literally took my migraine doses and my allergy meds and had coffee. And then I came and sat down and did this because, all the joy. Anyway, I am your host, Mama Maggie Ward, independent author, stroke survivor, migraine overcomer. I hope that you have a blessed and lovely day, and I will see you again on October 1st. All the words October.